Well, Vladimir Putin, the warm, cuddly ex-KGB guy who has spent the last several years winning the hearts and minds of the Russian people by bow hunting shirtless in Siberia in winter, or riding a tiger across the tundra shirtless, armed only with a rocket launcher, or emerging from a mano-a-mano shirtless knife fight with a killer whale in the ice-encrusted Volga, used all of his powers of intimidation and awesomeness, and got his butt handed to him by the Russian electorate that seems to be less impressed by these Festivus season feats of strength than I originally feared that they might be. Joining me now to peer across the Siberian tundra of Russian politics to catch a glimpse of the distant sun of hope low on the horizon are our own Steve Green and Scott Ott. Welcome, fellas. Steve, right as the 2008 election was really starting to reach its peak, Russia, with Putin behind the scenes, of course, got themselves into a shooting war in Georgia. It was kind of a tumultuous time. There have been other aggressive moves lately. Do you think that this electoral setback may be a signal that the Russian bear may not be reemerging in Cold War fashion?
You hate to say this, but I'm not sure that it matters.
No.
Look, Russia is within the same borders as the old Russian federative socialist republic back when that was the center of the USSR. They have 7 million fewer people today than they did in those same borders 20 years ago. Per capita wealth is about on par with Turkey. Longevity rates lower than Bulgaria, and an alcoholism rate, I'll tell you, that is higher than it is right here in my studio. There are really only two reasons Russia still matters,
Wow.
and that's nukes and that's energy. Yeah, I know it's big. Nukes and energy. They've got a lot of oil and a lot of gas and a lot of nukes. The only reason the nukes are any good is in case China ever got frisky about Siberia, and that would just be a mutual suicide pact. And with oil and gas, the U.S. is set to become a net energy exporter in the next 5 or 6 years if we can get Obama off our economies back, which will just totally undercut their profits there. So is Russia going to come back? Are they going to get a better government? Russia's dying either way, I'm afraid, Bill.
Good point. That demographics is destiny argument that Mr. Stein makes all the time. Scotty, let's go back to that kind of Putin mystique, though. We watched what seemed like a comically heavy-handed shows of manliness from Putin. Do you think he overplayed his tiger wrestling, shirtless horseback riding hand on this one?
Well, I know that Putin is a tough guy. I mean, after all, the guy was KGB. But I think the reaction that he's having now to these crowds that are gathering in the streets of Moscow has got him scared shitless. I think this is going to be big trouble for him. It's the last time I remember seeing stuff like this going on, Boris Yeltsin was hopping up on top of a tank and things utterly changed. So I'm a little more hopeful than Steve. I tend to think, call me George W. Bush, but I tend to think that there's something in the heart of every human on earth that resonates with the song of freedom and does not want to go back to what they had before.
Pooty Poot's not the answer for that particular tune, I don't think. We turn now to the vodka pundit for insights into the Russian future. Steve, Russia's been a source of mischief for hundreds of years now, at least as far as the West is concerned. Now, aside from all of the vodka, which was likely a Polish invention anyway, what has Russia given the world, and what do you think we might hope for to get from her in the future?
Engineers. Seriously, Russia still produces some of the finest engineers in the world. Rocket engineers, aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, they are among the best. And we need them. We need people who, as Scott said, who yearn for liberty. And to get back to Scott, last week, I think it was, he was just telling us how we need to show would-be jihadis and honor-killing dads and brothers, just show them the door. Well, while we're kicking them out, let's keep that door open to Russian engineers. Unlimited immigration. I'm stealing this idea from a commenter at Vodka Planet. Wide open. And you know what? They also breed some really hot tennis players and lingerie models, and I say we let them in too.
I'd be willing to make exceptions for people like that. Yeah, PhDs with money. Can't let them into the country. That would destroy the social fabric. Steve Green, I actually would cause them to vote Republican too, which I think has something to do with it. Steve Green hosts the Weekend Blogs and the Hair of the Dog segments right here at PJTV. Well, Scotty, they are great people, the Russians. A terrific literature, great science, as Steve just mentioned. They're tough people and they're strong people. Do you think the setback for Putin and the serious anti-Putin protests that we just saw in the streets, do you think that gives you hope that they may be getting over their historical need for a strong hand on the reins?
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a couple of generations. I mean, we were already seeing, the news is just breaking that there is a billionaire who's going to go up against Putin in this race. So it's not, you know, he hasn't cleared the field. He's going to have competition. The guy apparently, I mean, and I'm no expert in the NBA, but the billionaire apparently owns a basketball team in New Jersey. So, you know, there's been enough over the past few years, enough influence of capitalism, enough influence of American entrepreneurial freedom that these people have had a taste of it. They'll want more. Yes, I do think the future is bright, but that doesn't mean it doesn't get a lot more ugly between now and then.
Mm-hmm. It's a shame that Russian billionaire doesn't own apartment complexes in Chicago, because then he could be president not of Russia, but of the United States. You can be sure to catch the latest installment of Scott Ott's remarkable Freedom Charter. It's right here at PJTV. As for me, I was pleased and surprised to see this KGB thug take a little setback. And I also have to say that when I wrote the intro and used the expression Russian electorate, it kind of gave me a little bit of a thrill. That was something I didn't hear growing up. Freedom is something that almost all people want, but very few people know how to achieve. It's just what Scott just said. I think what the world needs now, though, is new voices of freedom. Voices like those of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, not only to keep the hope of freedom burning in Russia and elsewhere, but we wouldn't mind having a little bit of it to reignite it here at home. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.